So we're here in what's called the Southern Excavations, the Davidson Center, which is a huge and fascinating archaeological site. And we're standing on the street that was destroyed, the main market street that ran north-south along the western side of the Temple Mount, which is what we see in back of us over here from the late Second Temple period. This is the street that our ancestors walked on 2,000 years ago before the Romans destroyed Jerusalem and that Second Temple. But what's in back of me here is, as a tour guide, I find one of the most archaeologically evocative remains anywhere in the land of Israel, which is these are the stones pushed from the upper part of the Temple Mount as they hit the street when the Romans were destroying the Second Temple in the year 70. So this is literally a moment of history, a moment frozen in time, and in my opinion, the most graphic illustration of the destruction of the temple. And we need to talk about the idea of feeling that loss. Because we talk about Jerusalem constantly. We break a glass at a wedding. We say, Im eshkachech Yerushalayim tishkach yemini. If I forget thee, O Jerusalem. But I think that many of us are just on autopilot. We don't remember how important the temple is to us. And we have to constantly keep that in mind. The rabbis say that only someone who truly mourns for the loss of the temple will appreciate it being rebuilt. And to truly mourn for the loss of the temple, we have to appreciate what the temple really means. We have a system called the Torah, 613 commandments. A huge percentage of those commandments have to do with using the building that used to stand up there for 830 years, First and Second Temple, as a tool to connect individually and collectively to God. Because we don't have that temple of the 613 commandments, only 369 are applicable. Most of the positive commandments of the Torah, how to build that relationship and elevate ourselves in the world, are not doable because we don't have that building. There's an old Chinese proverb that says, only when we're sick of our sickness will we cease to be sick. And we need, especially at this time, and that's what Tisha B'Av and the 3 weeks are about, is to really try and get it into our emotions that God doesn't need a building. But the loss of that building interferes with our ability to elevate ourselves individually and collectively and elevate the world. And if we can get that into our emotions and truly work towards, whether it's by our actions, our thoughts, individually and collectively, getting that building to be rebuilt, then we've gone a long way towards getting that third temple. We talk about feeling and appreciating that loss. This is a great example. One of the only things the archaeologists left on the street when they cleared the stones off. This piece is not the original because it's in the Israel Museum, but this is the piece of the upper part of the wall going all the way up there. You can see 14 layers of original Herodian stone from the Second Temple period, and then additional Islamic stuff, but way higher than what you see today. Going up 120 feet above the street, this is the corner over here. And it says in Hebrew, Lebeit HaTekiyah, and then the word is cut off. But this is the place where 2,000 years ago, a Kohen, a priest, on Erev Shabbat, on the eve of Shabbat, would stand at the corner before Shabbat and blow a series of trumpet blasts to tell the Jewish people that Shabbat was coming in and to prepare. And again, it's another example of what we used to have, of Jerusalem rebuilt with a temple, with God's presence directly focused on the city. Jerusalem is largely rebuilt today, but again, we are still missing that building. And the loss of that is a huge spiritual loss for the Jewish people and for the world. So we're here in the entrance to the Davidson Center, this vast archaeological site. And even though it's not a piece of the wall per se, this is a great piece of history from the Second Temple period, Roman occupation of Jerusalem, or even post-Roman destruction of the Second Temple. This is a commemorative column. We find many columns around here lying in the archaeological site and the excavations, but this one is particularly important because it has an inscription on it. And it says the name Vespasian, Caesar Vespasian. Now, Vespasian and Titus were the father-son general team that will crush the Great Revolt from 66 to 70 and lead to the destruction of the Second Temple. Once Jerusalem was destroyed, the 10th Roman Legion, you can see it here, L-E-G-X-F-R-E-T, Legio X Fretensis. 4 Roman legions were involved in crushing the Great Revolt and conquering Jerusalem. The 10th Roman Legion also went on several years later to take Masada, but they were stationed as a military force in the Old City of Jerusalem for hundreds of years after the destruction, and this is a commemorative column from the 10th Roman Legion in honor of the Roman Emperor Vespasian and Titus, that father-son team who conquered Jerusalem and then became emperors of Rome. And this was actually, I believe, the site where the mile markers were measured out from the city of Jerusalem on the Roman roads that went out from the city. But again, it's an incredible piece of history of the destruction of Jerusalem and the occupation by foreign powers that we found when we dug up the city thousands of years later.
It is Hey Av. You can feel the days becoming heavier as we approach the final destruction of the Beit, the home. The place a heavenly God chose to call home on this earth. The place we call home for anything that's sacred or holy or pure, Bet HaMikdash. In the height of its glory, and it's true that we know the deterioration started way before the final destruction, but in the height of its glory, this place was an opening. It was a gate to heaven, a place where there was a natural flow, a flow of prayer, of worship, of atonement, of a bounty of blessings, of prophecy, of Torah, a place where heaven and earth kissed. The Talmud says that when Bet Mikdash was destroyed, a metal wall was built between us and Avinu Shebashamayim, and the gates of prayer were locked. So now our prayers no longer just naturally flow through this opening to their destination. They have to fight their way through, helped by tears. We lost the ability to live a full Jewish life. Half of the mitzvot of the Torah depend on this place. And we lost our focal point, the place all Jews looked up to, the place we gathered 3 times a year from every corner of Eretz Israel, from every corner of the diaspora. We all came together here in Yerushalayim to celebrate, to connect to each other, to connect to Torah, to connect to Hashem. We lost something of the naturalness of a full Torah life. We lost the sense of being at home in this world.